around. Kevin Hincks, co-host of Fast Market Live at the CBOE, and it's all about Jay Powell today. We know there's been a lot of Fed speakers, some that have been dissenters and really leaning towards a cut, and Scott Bessent has pushed for 50 basis points. What do you think people are anticipating today?
Good morning, Nicole. I think it all has to do with this 8 to 12 minute speech that Jerome Powell's about to give. He has some history, like 2022, of being very hard on the markets in this speech. Remember, this is that lull between the July meeting and the September meeting. So here's the way I explained it to my adult children. If he talks about inflation, the market will not like that and probably sell off. If he talks about the labor market, rates will probably go down. The probabilities of a rate cut will probably go up, and the market will like that. If he straddles and stays in the middle, the market probably drifts a bit higher, Nicole, and there's a big nothing burger. But that's not always the case. Jerome Powell does have a history of making some headlines during this speech, which will be his final Jackson Hole speech as the Fed chair. So I think watch the U.S. dollar. Remember, if he's hawkish, the dollar goes up. If he's dovish, the dollar will probably go down. Watch yields, kind of the same. If he's hawkish, they go up. If he's dovish, they go down. So watch the reaction to the market. We'll know pretty quickly if he's leaning hawkish or dovish or somewhere in the middle, or if he gives we're going to wait for more data, we have time to be patient. Market probably won't love that, but we'll see what he comes out. You just don't know. It's going to, like I said, it won't be a long speech, but it'll be a significant one.
And I think that was a good summation, because if he talks about inflation, that's the concern, they're not cutting rates. If he talks about labor and that's his concern, they'll be cutting rates. And that's what he did last year. When he was concerned about labor, they cut rates. In the meantime, the likelihood using the CME tool, we're still seeing more likely than not that we will get rate cuts in the next 3 meetings, right?
Exactly right. And a little bit of uncertainty has drifted into those numbers. It was 95%, right? It's worked its way off those numbers, although still in the positive category for a rate cut. And also, if you want to know if the market is tense or nervous, look at the VIX, right? We ended last week 14.5. Now we're 16.5. So the VIX is telling you that there's a little bit of more concern about this. The VIX has done nothing but gone up every day this week. Now, that also correlates with a down market, like you mentioned, but the VIX is higher than where we started the week. So there is some concern about the overall market. Jerome Powell's going to either add to those fears or alleviate them at about 10 o'clock Eastern. Nicole?
Yeah, all right. I mean, it feels like moments away. I have a lot of anticipation for the opening bell, but this obviously is a huge moment. In the meantime, what about Nvidia? I mean, there's been a lot of scrutiny on the chips, and how good and authentic are these chips for China? Now, there's been some backing off here.
Nicole, this is a story you have to be really careful with, because some of the suppliers are saying that NVIDIA is calling them and telling them to stop making the H20 chips or stop making the pieces that go into the H20 chips. Now, that might be based on the story out yesterday that China is telling their companies not to buy the H20 chips. That could be a problem. However, if, like Jensen Huang is saying, he's making a stronger chip for China that still is compliant with the U.S. restrictions, then that's a different story. And then some of that concern about the rumor, the stories out today that they're stopping production of the H20 chip, then that dissipates, right? And it's actually a good thing because they're making a more powerful chip. So we'll see how that plays out over time. I wouldn't necessarily consider it bad news if NVIDIA plans to stop producing the H20 and start producing a stronger chip.
Unusually quiet on the Putin-Zelensky front, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, exactly right, which makes me think that maybe something's going on behind the scenes. There has been some escalation in bombing, though, which is a negative for that. President Trump not happy with that, as you would think, as you're trying to negotiate a peace deal, that some of the bombing is actually picking up. That's not ideal for that situation, but you're right. There's been kind of a void of headlines coming from this. You would think that there would be some talk of advancements of this towards a Putin-Zelensky meeting or a Putin-Zelensky-Trump meeting. You haven't heard any major headlines on that during this week since the meeting last week with the EU, or Monday with the EU leaders. So you're right, it's been a little quiet.
A lot quiet. And then it means watch oil, because if Putin is not interested in really shutting this down, because it certainly doesn't seem that he's fully on board, then there'll be more sanctions and there'll be more issues, and then oil could be the hot topic. So we will see. But for right now, it doesn't seem like anything great is coming out, but they could be working behind the scenes. We don't know. Kevin Hincks, good to see you. Thank you so very much.